Okay. Yeah, let's start. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the See You Denver Film Society. We'll probably have to change the name. Might or might not. But unfortunately, from here on out, I will be the only host since both members have taken a different route. But still, please check out Broden Mock's newest podcast, Conversations of Interest. He's doing great stuff on there. He just started it. First episode, awesome episode. It's about his very first short film that he made, or it's actually 2 hours, so feature length. Very first film that he made, called Carrie's Clan. So it's awesome. But today, on the episode, we're diving into something very close to my heart. My second freshman film, Darios Opus. I've always wanted to do this episode for a while, and now the film is living its strange, haunted life on the internet. I want to walk you through how it came to be, why we shot it the way we did, and what it truly means to me. Every single aspect of what we did, pre-production, post-production. So Dario's Opus started as a freshman writing project. I had to write a no dialogue script, and from there I wrote the short film. And I don't really even remember where the main story sprouted from in the first place. I know inspirations were The Lighthouse, and just very folk horror. While I was writing it, this image wouldn't leave me alone. It was an artist locked away in a room trying to finish their life's work, trying to finish something that is going to make them remembered, but instead of finding inspiration, they slowly spiral into madness. They can't do anything. They're just staring at this blankness. Nothing has come of it. Or whatever has come of it is just bullshit. It's nothing that they could do. Um, and I kept coming back to that idea of isolation, not just physically, but mentally, because I always love this idea of psychological horror. I love psychological horror. I love delving into characters' minds and seeing what really makes them tick. So, what happens when you shut the world out and all you're left with is a kid? The main theme that I tried to portray with this one is what happens when you shut the world out and all you're left with is nothing but yourself and your artwork. And I love the idea of protagonists in movies going mad, as I said, but there's nothing physically that they could do to stop it or what's tormenting them. I love that idea. I remember writing it was a very strange process. It didn't directly come from anything autobiographical that I had experienced, but I think every artist has felt this sense of pressure that if you just focus hard enough, you lock yourself away, give everything to that work or, that piece that you're creating, something great will come out of it, and sometimes, the opposite happens. You burn out, you unravel, and that became the spine of the script. And it's kind of ironic because this movie kind of made me burn out at sometimes just because of how much work I put on myself. I edited it all myself. I wrote it, directed it. I produced it as well. So, it all fell on me. Um, and, after I wrote it, I shelved the script until I took my Prod 1 class the next semester. And I decided, why not just pitch the script to the class? And I knew early on that I didn't want the audience watching Dario from a distance. I wanted them to feel like they were trapped with him, like the room itself was the character. So that's where the 4:3 aspect ratio comes in. If you watch the movie, there's two aspect ratios, and there's also black and white and color. So the two aspect ratios, 16:9 and 4:3, they switch back and forth. Halfway through the movie, we'll go to 4:3, and I experienced a lot of backlash from my classmates about that decision. I realized it did sound like a pretentious choice, but for me, it wasn't about, it wasn't about being pretentious. It wasn't about all this, oh, I just want it to look like an art house film. No, it was about confinement. To me, I felt I wasn't skilled enough to make the room, or I didn't have enough resources to make the room feel like it was cluttered or closed off. So I just decided, why not make it 4:3? I found a reason to make it 4:3. you know, that boxy frame squeezes the image. It tightens the space that we're in. and there's no space. There's no space. There's no escape. You're in that space with him, and there's no breathing room. So, on set we had this monitor, this tiny Shinobi monitor, that my camera crew and I would look through, and we put black tape on either side so we could see what the audience would see once we got into the editing room. And I mean, to be fair, that 4:3 aspect kind of helped us in the end because there was a lot of um, technical issues and things that arose. Like somebody's finger started poking in frame at one point, and then there was just a whole ass leg that was just in frame while he was freaking out in one scene, and I was just like, oh fuck. So the 4:3 aspect really helped, and I think it made the film look better. Also, we paired that with the black and white, but only in moments when Dario's truly alone. You know, when he's isolated, when he's fully in his own mind, that's when the color drops out. So even when the old man comes to the door and asks for the rent, he's still in this state of like everything's going wrong. Nothing is going right. He can't do anything about it. So, it's subtle, and I didn't want the audience to immediately notice it. I wanted it to feel like a tonal shift, a kind of unconscious cue that we're not even really in the real world anymore. We're in his world, um, his madness, and it starts right as they get into the room. It's almost as if the room controls him from the very start. Um, it's his perception. So, you could take that either two ways. You could take it in either the room's supernatural, which if you want to take it in that way, take it in that way, or it's fate. It's whatever it was meant to be from the start, him going mad in the room. And I have to give a huge shout out to my DP, Broden Mock, and my gaffer, Alex Nelson, because the way that they use light and shadow, I sent a mood board to my gaffer and I said, well, I really want a almost Nosferatu look, and because I really wanted an almost Nosferatu look, this very cold, cold blue. And then eventually I realized, well, if we're going to be doing it in black and white, I want almost a lighthouse feel. I realized that we were going into this lighthouse, tribute. So I mean, it's unreal how they pulled that off. We only had one lamp in this art gallery that my production designer, brought to set. House lights were off in the art gallery. There was no RE kits, no C stands, no lights. It was just one lamp. And on occasion we would, maybe turn on an RE kit, but we didn't really need it. And it's still, even with that one lamp, it provided this moody, suffocating atmosphere that I love. I mean, I love looking at it even now. I mean, I love it. And when you're working in black and white, contrast was everything. I mean, every shadow matters. Every bounce of light becomes emotional. And I think, they pulled it off. Both of them pulled it off. Just because, there's this split down the face that you're always going to see in the movie. To me, it feels like he's going crazy. He's getting more and more crazier. It's like it makes him look more intimidating and more maddening. If we go to when he wakes up, so we're right here. He curls into a ball. Again, I love that. But then we go into the next scene, though, right about here. Right here is, I never really like those shadows like the raccoon shadow right here. It's under his eye. But I feel like in this scene, it works so well because we're only seeing just a little bit of his face. At this point, he's just so broken down as a character. And I feel like that bag, it creates like a bag under his eye. It almost makes him look tired and defeated. And I love that. I love what they did for that. I mean, honestly, we just used that lamp, and that lamp just adds so much. I mean, it just makes it gets me excited to talk about it. So yeah, yeah, I mean, we leaned into that hard. We leaned into that aspect of the film hard, and both of them absolutely nailed it. I mean, big round of applause to Alex Nelson for that. I couldn't have made this film without them. Right here, we have the opening credits of it, and the whole point of Darius Opus was it was supposed to be set in Little Italy, but again, I live in Colorado, and I'm also a short independent filmmaker, so I can't get Little Italy. But what I could get close enough, even just close enough, was just these houses, and they're not frat houses, but they're houses on campus that I don't know what the hell they are, probably honor society or something. I like this shot, and even though it's shaky, I don't know. I think I've grown accustomed to the shakiness. I would have liked if it was a little bit smoother, but when I put warp stabilizer on it, it looked like we were going through a thing of Jello, so I couldn't do that. But right here, I like it because, we don't know what he's thinking. We don't know what's happening. It's just we're finally introduced to our characters, and I really love the background and everything of it. Like the houses, they look awesome to me. Um, what we were gonna do was this was after I shot the film. Uh, this actor Aidan McDonough, he talked to me. And he was like, "Well, you could loop the ending because we didn't know what to do. We didn't know how to end the film and the editing process because it didn't work. The original ending was him supposed to be saying perfecto when he steps back from the painting, but that didn't work. That looks very cheesy. So he gave me an idea and he said, well, what you could do is you could loop back to this scene, and this scene is actually after he kills the old man. And he looks down at the hands, and there's blood on his hands. It's, oh, that's fucking awesome. That's a great. The problem with that is I don't have a camera that I can use, and I can't check out the film equipment camera, because I'm not doing a school project, or whatever. So I couldn't do that. But what could have been of Darius Opus. Yeah. But again, we're just watching him sit here and him walking up, and this was never meant to be a church, but we just decided to do this location because there was a cafe, there was apartments that we looked at, but you had to pay for all of them, all of that. Still like how it turned out though. We're gonna jump ahead a little bit. I like what happened was this was a choice, a decision on set. What we did is them walking up the stairs of the church. That was all supposed to be explained in the room. I was like, well, that's just gonna feel like too much exposition. I feel like, well, why don't we just have them just walk up these stairs? I know this is a shot list, and my DP and my first AD, they were just like, yeah, let's just do it. And this was day two. I think this was our best day, I feel like, on set, just because we got out of that fuck ass room. I mean, that room was just making everybody go crazy. I feel like it was so small and cramped. Um, but yeah, and an interesting thing about the room, and we're gonna skip again. This room, we only shot a little bit of diagonal of this room just because um, uh, it was a very big room and we wanted to make it smaller. So, I had the idea of making the 4:3 aspect ratio, but again, my production designer said, hey, that's not going to be enough. So we just, taped off a diagonal side of the room and decided to just shoot, on just one side. So, that's why it feels like he's just stuck in one room. And I think that adds to it. He's only in one location. He's always just in this location. And it's so maddening to look at. It's like, ah, shit, he can't escape it. There's nothing he can do. Feels like he's almost trapped in it. I love that. And, yeah, as I'm watching it, I love that the lamp is always just so hot. You know, it feels like the lamp is his only sanctuary, and it's always just such this hot, bright thing that just doesn't go away, and it's so annoying, and it's just I love it. I like it. I don't know how else to explain it. We always wanted to do a lighthouse, or I always wanted to do a lighthouse, almost like lighthouse vibe. I think I think we achieved it. I a little bit. Honestly, I love his performance in this. I mean, it's so subtle, but it gets across, honestly. I mean, he's a go-to actor. Uh, he's been a friend since first grade, and he'll always be a go-to actor. What I like about this is, in reality, the old man is actually the actor. He's shorter than Aiden, who was Dario. So Christopher, who was the old man actor, is actually shorter than him. But what I love about this scene is, you know, a lot of people, didn't like his performance, but I truly love it. I think he brings this atmosphere to it that I don't know, maybe it's just because I've been editing this for such a long time, but I like his performance. I think it's awesome. He embodies that old man aesthetic and he embodies this angry thing that I was looking for. And this kind of annoying, poking tone that I was always looking for, and he embodies that. And what's happening here, and I love the power dynamic right here, is what we see is when he pushes him, he's over him, he's towering over him, and he's, holding his arm out to him. And it's this, where's my money? What is happening? And a lot of people found, my classmates when they watched this, a lot of people found there was a continuity issue. That, when he goes back and asks for the rent and he opens the door and he said it's been 3 weeks. And then in this scene, he says, oh, it's been 4 weeks. I expect my money. It's been 4 weeks and all you've been offering me is a painting. And what I like about that is because this whole movie, except for just the beginning when he's talking to the old man about renting out the studio, once it turns into black and white, we are with Dario. We're inside his mind. We're going crazy with him. So that's why the black and white, why the 4:3, why I chose to do the 4:3 in the black and white is because you're going insane with him. So the time jump is actually intentional when he says it's been 4 weeks, we go, wait, wait, wait. He just said it's been 3 weeks. So, we're being confused just as Dario is confused because there's just been this huge jump. He's been going crazy for so long, he has no sense of time passage. So that's what I love about that. I like that, and I love it. I just love this is my favorite scene in the whole movie, just because, I love the acting in the scene. I like that Christopher brought exactly what I wanted. And Aiden, all I said was, he's like a father that's disapproving of you. And he just keeps poking at you. You're just so out of it. You don't know what to do. And that's what I love about this. You know, and when we were on set that day, Christopher kept forgetting his lines, and to be fair, I was a little worried that he wasn't going to be able to deliver, but I mean, he did. In my mind, he did. I loved his performance. I love both their performances in this one. Um, Honestly, it's great. I mean, and then we finally get to the silhouette when he's stabbing, and this was actually the hardest. This was the hardest choice for me when I was editing, or one of the hardest choices, at least probably in the top five. um, was when he's stabbing. I didn't know whether what to include. I wanted this. First I wanted this big, huge orchestra just playing, and it's like this super stylized thing. And then I was like, okay, let's have a painting screech. I just wanted the audience to feel either scared or uncomfortable by the stabbings. And eventually, all I did, was just take away the music. And, you know, I think it's effective. I love it. You know, I love what's happening is, I slowed down Brodermock's score. He created a score for this. I slowed down what he called the middle song. I slowed it down all the way until it just became this weird, almost like ambiance. I don't know what it did, but it was amazing. I mean, I love how it turned out. But I slowed it down by about 65%. And it created what we have where it's buzzing in your ears, and I love it. Honestly, I do. And again, we have this split, the shadow, and we're showing this very pinkish on his face. And I mean, I love the colors of this scene. Um, and then we finally get to the final scene. He pulls it out, and you know, old man is dying. Okay. You know, I don't think there's anything else I can talk about. I mean, to me, I'm looking at it again, I was a little negative at first, but I mean, I'm glad with how it went out. I mean, there's always going to be points where I could do better, but honestly, I'm glad what I did and what my crew did, and what my actors did, and I'm glad about the performances and everything, and yeah, it was awesome. So yeah, thank you all for watching. Next episode will probably be me explaining some cinematography on Innsbruck. Very short episode. But yeah, thank you all for watching.